Lucky George is the publisher, Travel Africa Times. You're the publisher. I want to thank you so much indeed for coming on State of the Nation at this time. And you have particularly been on that route as well, the Mediterranean, on that perilous journey.
Yes, I have.
And this was many years back.
2005, quite a while now.
I've never met someone who has been on that route, or I've only read about it on the news, so I'm really privileged. Tell me, how troubled is that water?
The problem is not the water. The problem is the mode of transportation crossing the Mediterranean. And from what point do you take off from? There are 3 points when you're going into Europe from Africa. You have the Libya jungle, you have the Morocco jungle, and of course the Mauritania angle. These are the 3 main exiting points for Africans that are trying to cross the Mediterranean into Europe. And of course, again, you have the Zimbabwe angle, which is for Southern Africa. That's another. These are the 4 major outlets for traffickers around Africa. Indulge
me, what do you think, because this cartel seems to be biting so much and taking girls out of this country, or should I say even this continent as a whole, what do you think about their actions? Is the government or the agencies that are responsible, or even the IOM that is responsible for overseeing these migrants, are they doing their job?
Unfortunately not. Funny enough, there are more men being trafficked than women.
More men being trafficked?
Absolutely. If you see a group of 500 migrants attempting to cross over, 80% of them will be men. I have traveled with them, and there are more men being trafficked. But it's only when the women end up maybe in Europe that we talk more about them. There are more men that are unaccounted for across Africa.
What are the men traveling for?
Oh, greener pasture in most cases, and that has always been from history.
So do you think that we're able to address some of the, or should I say, the root causes for this number of migrants, of young people live in this country?
We've not been able to because, you know, lack of jobs, opportunity, the intention of going to Europe, thinking that when you arrive in Europe, you make millions overnight. Because those who had been there had returned home with the false pretense, showing, flashing words, and that is the motivation for a lot of Nigerians and a lot of Africans. So they felt the best way to do it is actually go this deadly way. To me, it's a deadly voyage.
Paint a picture for me, because you've been on that route. Paint a picture. Say you set sail. Would it be in the morning or at night, whatever time that is? Paint a picture. How does it all work?
This is how it works. First, you make contact with the traffickers in your home country. From there, they draw up itinerary, telling you from Lagos, for instance, or from Benin, or from Kano, for instance, they tell you it's going to take you 2 weeks to get to the takeoff point. The takeoff point is at the edge of the desert. If you're going through the northern part, which is through Niger, Libya, your exit point will be Kano. If you're taking off from Lagos, your exit point will be Benin, Ghana, and of course, Burkina Faso. Then you end up in Mali. That is the frontier. Then the other angle is from Lagos, and you end up in Mauritania. For those who are migrating to Americas, Mauritania is a terminal where all the ships coming in, going to America, take off from. So a lot of them who stow away, that is their own link. For those who want to end up in Europe, they go to this Libya and, of course, the Morocco axis. It's never a good journey.
But what kind of treatment do you get on the ship? Or should I say on the dinghy?
But you are at the mercy of the traffickers, because the traffickers will collect as many as possible people. For maybe a truck that could take about 100 people, the man wants to maximize his profit, and he takes over 500. He charges $500 per immigrant. When you get to the exit point, he gives you the little water, he hands you over to his agent, and the agent drives you maybe 500 kilometers into the desert, where you still have about 100 kilometers to go, and he tells you the border is just about 20 kilometers away, and they are let loose in the desert. Most cases, these guys were exposed to robbers, especially when you know Mali very well with the Tuareg rebels crisis. They are robbers, they are militants who collect their money, and they become so stranded. And it's never a pleasant history.
Because we get reports that the kind of treatment methods on them, especially the female ones, are dehumanizing. What do you think happened to the 26 girls who died?
Unfortunately, I think they suffocated. That is my thinking, because from Libya or from Morocco, for instance, there they live like animals. If you know the waterfront, for instance, if you've been to the creek before, especially if you've been to the Mediterranean part of Europe or the Middle East, it's covered with a short wooden forest whereby you can see very far away. But unfortunately, most of these guys live in the open. They live like animals. The way we live when we go to farm to work, that is how they live.
They sleep in the open?
In the open.
Without any covering?
Without any cover. That is how they live. In Morocco, let me give you the picture. When I was in Morocco, I left a city called Tangiers for Rabat to announce my presence to the Nigerian High Commission, Nigerian ambassador at that time.
Were you looking for greener pastures too?
No. I told my editor when I was with business, one of my editors, Eric Okeke, I told him, look, I want to be famous as a journalist. And he said to me, you have to do what none of us in the newsroom have done before. And I told him I was going to embark on the journey. And I actually applied to my editor at that time, and my editor-in-chief approved it, and that was how I embarked on the journey. So the point is, as at that time I was in Morocco, officially, there were 86 Nigerians officially living in the whole of Morocco. 53 of them were students from Niger State on scholarship. The rest were embassy staff, except 2 other pastors that were in Morocco as officially recorded by the Nigerian embassy.
This was in 2006?
In 2006. No, 2005. At that time, there were about 4,000 Nigerians living in the forested area of Nador, Suta, and Melilas. You know, you can sneak into Libya. You cannot live voluntarily. And that is why it's so difficult that the human traffickers are taking advantage of them. Unlike in Morocco, you cannot live when you sneak into Morocco, because you don't need occasionally most of them travel without visas. So they enter this country illegally. So when they enter, so it's so difficult for you to leave this country, this Arab country. That is the way their visa is processed. You can go in without document, but you cannot leave legally. So that is the problem. At this point, this is where they turn to the migrant, the traffickers, who now took advantage, who charge so much money. Let me tell you, when I was in Morocco, there were over 5,000 Nigerians at that time that were sick. You see them in the morning, they come to the city to beg for food. Then in the evening, they go back. Some of them, their family even sent money to them through the Moroccan gendarme.
But what's our foreign mission in those countries doing to help those Nigerians?
I can tell you, as someone that has written extensively on immigration in Europe and in the US and across Africa, the Nigerian embassies and High Commission are not made for ordinary Nigerians. They are meant for the businessmen and government officials. That is the truth. I have challenged several government officials on this, the Nigerian ambassadors across Europe and Americas. That is the truth. The embassies are not meant for ordinary Nigerians.
But do you think it was wrong to have buried the girls?
It is wrong, but again, where were the Nigerian government? These people have been in Libya for so many years. These people that got drowned, or the ladies that we talked about, perhaps they've been on the road for over 5 years.
That's a good place to end it. I want to thank you so much indeed, Lucky George, the publisher, African Travel Times. Many thanks indeed. Let's quickly remind you also that we have breaking story that Robert Mugabe has resigned. The Parliament Speaker, Jacob Mdenda, said this after the surprise announcement was made as lawmakers debated an impeachment motion against the 93-year-old leader in the joint sitting of Parliament. Mr. Mugabe had previously refused to resign despite last week's military takeover and days of protest against his rule. He has been in power since independence in 1980, and that seems to suggest the end of an era for Robert Mugabe. That's State of the Nation. Thanks for watching. And I'm Gimba Umar. Bye for now.